Hi everyone, I'm Jing Xu Bella. I'm glad to share with you some information about my topic of learner diversity, that is cultural minorities. First of all, what are cultural minorities? People of cultural minorities come from different ethnic groups compared to white Americans in the U.S. They have different histories, different experiences, different knowledge, attitudes, values, and customs. They have their own languages and cultures that are different from the mainstream culture in the US. Cultural minorities so prevalent in the US. Now let's look at some statistics. The first one, US Census estimates that members of cultural minorities now make up more than a third of the population in the United States. The second one, in the classroom, more than 4 of 10 students in the pre to 12 population are members of cultural minorities. 3. Children of color currently make up the majority of public school enrollments in California, Hawaii, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Mexico, and Texas, and over 90% of the student population in Detroit, New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles, and Baltimore. 4. 2010 census data shows that less than half of 3-year-olds in the United States were white, and it is the first time in history. 5. Experts estimate that nearly 300 distinct ethnic groups live in the United States. And 6. For the immigration in the U.S., now nearly 40% come from Mexico and Central America, about 25% come from Asia, and 10% come from Caribbean. Less than 15% come from Europe. This is from U.S. Bureau of Census. Researchers predict that the students in the school, that white and non-Hispanic students, will decrease to a little more than half of the total population, and students of all other groups except the white and non-Hispanic will significantly increase. This is from U.S. Bureau of Census. And the diversity in our students is rapidly increasing, and members of cultural minorities are now majorities in several states and large cities. From these statistics, we can see that cultural minorities are so common in the U.S. These two pictures show students of white American and cultural minorities. It is so common in the schools in the United States. Now let's look at some characteristics of the students of cultural minorities. The first one is students have different attitudes towards learning, and this is influenced by home cultures. For example, Asian students, they work hard, score higher on achievement tests, and have higher rates of college attendance and completion because they do added academic activities at home by their parents. But for African American, Native American, and Hispanic American students, they influenced by their culture at home, and they consistently score lower on achievement tests. They reject the values of mainstream culture, and they have lower grades, classroom management and motivation problems, and also truancy and higher dropout rates. The second characteristic is that these students are anxious about their performance, and they are afraid that their behavior might confirm a stereotype by many other people. The third characteristic is that students of cultural minorities, they have their own interaction patterns that they learn in the home. For example, white children, they respond comfortably to questions requiring specific answers, such as, "What's this story about?" But for African American children, they are accustomed to questions that are more open-ended and story starter types, and sometimes they are confused by specific questions. And the fourth characteristic is that students of cultural minorities, they come from some cultures that value cooperation and view competition as unnecessary or even distasteful, such as Native American, Mexican American, and Southeast Asian students. They don't have a competitive atmosphere at home. The fifth characteristic is that for pre-college students of cultural minorities, on average, they are less academically talented, more in need of remedial education among matriculating to college, and lack the cultural capital and family support that is necessary for college success. Also, wide disparities in high school graduation rates and college readiness between whites and blacks and whites and Latinos, and generally lower college participation rates for Latinos and blacks. The sixth characteristic is that students of culturally minority, they have lower degree of campus engagement. Racially minoritized students are less engaged in campus life and more active off campus, and at home than on campus when compared with white peers. Black students feel more comfortable in the classroom than the social spaces on their campus, and Black and Latino students are more likely to go home and have more connections off campus than either white or Asian American students. Students of cultural minorities, they face many challenges in their learning and life. The first and most important challenge is culture mismatch. Students are surrounded by two kinds of cultures. That is the culture from their home and neighborhood and the culture at school. And if these two cultures match, the former will complement and reinforce of the latter. And if they mismatch, the former will interfere with the learning, and thus it will create conflicting expectations for students and their behavior. And students may have difficulty in understanding teacher instructions and in structuring school tasks, and hence they will use less effective learning strategies. Culture mismatch is showed in many aspects. The first one is the contradiction between resistance culture and the mainstream culture. So, what's the resistance culture? Sometimes members of some cultural minorities, such as African American, Native American, and Hispanic American, have resistance cultures. And they have cultures with beliefs, values, and behaviors that reject the values mainstream culture. So this will bring a very serious result, that is, members of these cultural minorities consistently score lower on achievement tests. The second cultural mismatch is that students' ways of acting and interacting with adults may differ from the traditional teacher as authority figure role. Sometimes students of cultural minorities have problems with interpretations of time and school-related behaviors. The third cultural mismatch is that Native American, Mexican American, and Southeast Asian students may experience difficulties in competitive classrooms. Raising hands and jousting for the right to answer are difficult for them because they are different from their home culture. And minority cultures are characterized by a normative emphasis on collectivism and or relatedness, in contrast with dominant cultural values of individualism or separateness in the host culture. Besides the cultural mismatch, students also face the challenge of stereotype threat. As minority students struggle to adapt to and complete in schools, they sometimes experience the anxiety resulting from concern that their behavior confirms stereotype. Negative teacher stereotypes of minority students as lazy and or dumb may become self-fulfilling prophecies. And this will bring very bad results. That is, first, it adversely affects performance through heightened anxiety that reduces students' capacity for thinking and problem solving. The second result is repeated experience of school failure may threaten the self-esteem of disadvantaged minority youth, leading to disengagement with learning. The third challenge for students of culturally minorities students is racially hostile campus environments. Institutions still have racial and ethnic exclusions, and these students lack social or cultural skills to participate actively in classroom interactions. Since such an important group in the United States faces so many challenges, so what can we do to help them? Let's talk about eight strategies that we can use. Okay, the first one is teachers should be aware of possible culture mismatch and help students from cultural minorities adapt to dominant culture. Teachers can help students understand the culture of schooling and honor the value and integrity of students' home cultures at the same time. Here, the culture of schooling means the norms, procedures, and expectations necessary for success. And also, teachers can set minority role models for students. It provides students with evidence that they can both succeed in mainstream culture and retain their cultural identity. And for Chinese classes, we can do this. At the beginning of Chinese classes, I would tell students the procedures, classroom rules, the rewards, and the consequences. I tell them my expectations for them. Also, I will respect different cultures of cultural minority students. In my classes, I will learn their culture from them and let them compare their cultures and Chinese culture. And also, teachers can ask cultural minority students who learn Chinese very well to be the models and to go to different classes and different grades. They will show their good Chinese, share learning strategies, and encourage their peers. The second strategy is to reduce students' anxiety from stereotype threats and increase students' motivation to learn. Teachers can communicate positive expectations for all learners for the first day of class. And also, teachers can make individual improvement the theme of our teaching and minimize comparisons among students. And third, teachers can model and emphasize the role of hard work and effort in learning. In my Chinese class, I would ask every student to make his or her own Chinese book and they write what they learn, what progress they make, and their performance at class, and summarize the Chinese book every week. And every day I would give students who work very hard or make progress stickers, and students can use these stickers they earn to buy the Chinese gifts from me. And every week we would have our Chinese star. Teachers use these ways to motivate students. The third strategy is that teachers use more open-ended questions in the lessons and provide extra support and praise for the minority students' attempts to respond to specific questions. For example, in my Chinese class, when I plan my lesson, I would plan more open-ended questions. For example, when we learn the Chinese food, I would ask students, what do you think about Chinese food? If you are going to China, what food will you try and why? And if you have a chance to introduce one Chinese food to the Americans, what will you choose and why? Students of cultural minorities will love this kind of questions. And second, when it is necessary to ask the specific questions, I would encourage cultural minority students to have a try, give them help, and praise them when they answer the questions or have a brave try to motivate them and give them confidence to answer specific questions. And this picture shows the open-ended question that teachers can use in their classes, like ask students about how, why, or when, or something. The fourth strategy is that teachers can use multicultural education. For example, teachers can illustrate ideas using content from a variety of cultures. Like in Chinese class, when we study the Chinese dances, I would ask students to compare different dances in different countries. At this time, I would give pictures and videos not only the American dance, but also Mexican dances, Thailand dances, and other countries, where students come from or their ancestry come from. The fifth strategy is that teachers keep direct communication with the parents by parent-teacher conferences, phone calls, and emails. Like in Chinese class, I can regularly communicate with parents by parent-teacher conferences, phone calls, and emails, and talk about the children's performance, give suggestions, discuss students' problems to see whether some problems are due to their cultures, and discuss the solutions with the parents. The sixth strategy is to construct positive student-teacher relationships. The teachers show our care and interest for the students of cultural minorities. The teachers could have high expectations for students of cultural minorities. Also, teachers could develop skills such as listening and caring to enable students to share our experiences and cultural knowledge. Teachers should reflect on our practice and make a conscious effort to change and improve the way we communicate with the students of cultural minorities. Also, teachers should recognize and capitalize on students' unschooled knowledge, which is a forceful influence on learning. Last, teachers should demonstrate empathy with the students' culture. In my Chinese class, I will care for my students and reflect on my teaching and caring for my students. When there is problem, I will listen to the students and then decide what to do. The seventh strategy is that teachers use small group work. Small group work dialogic discourse offers an epistemic environment for learning to develop, and students will benefit socially from taking turns and listening to others. It will allow students to talk and work with each other to construct meaning. Classroom interactions and teaching practice encourage cooperative, and this classroom arrangement is more similar to the home environment, which is structured around children-initiated activity in peer groups of siblings and friends. So, students of cultural minorities will love this small group work. And in my Chinese class, I will divide students into small groups and let them discuss with each other to finish the tasks. The last strategies for teachers is that teachers motivate students with a long FTP, which is future time perspective. Teachers can help students form a long future positive perception of the instrumentality of schoolwork to reach future career goals. And teachers motivate students with highly valued and internally controlled future goals, not with externally controlled future goals, such as increased earnings or job qualifications. Teachers should look for innovative ways to support the students' future goals. There are two ways. The first one is stress relevant future goals along with immediate task goals, and the second one is articulate positive connections between making progress in class and achieving valued personal goals in the near and distant future. And here is the references I use. Above are the things I want to